This is Rubber Duck and we got ourselves a convoy. And by convoy, I mean a broken iPhone 12 Pro Max. This is my neighbor's iPhone and she said a water bottle fell on it at school. I also found a lot of cracks around the outside of the screen, so apparently this phone has been through a lot. Fortunately, the back glass and cameras weren't broken, but something's wrong with the front camera because it takes blurry pictures. So we're gonna fix it. This is my first iPhone 12 Pro Max repair, so hopefully I can figure it out because she and her family are some of the best people in the world. To start the repair, I'm gonna take out the 2 pentalobe screws with a P2 screwdriver. If you're following along, make sure you're organizing your screws on a piece of paper or a tray. To lift up the screen, I'm going to start on the 2 corners and use a razor blade to pry it up. After some experimenting, I found the best way to use the razor blade is to barely put it in to where it bevels on the edge. I barely put it into the beveled edge and work my way slowly around the screen to lift it up. If you're having a hard time getting it open, you can use a hairdryer to heat up the glue. I'll also want to be really careful on the left side because I could see that that's where the cables were. Once that's been loosened, I'm going to lift it straight out. Then I'll open it to the left like a book. I could see that there was 2 ribbon cables, so I was careful not to extend it past 90 degrees. Otherwise I could stretch out or tear the ribbon cables. Luckily, the inside of the 12 Pro Max looks very similar to other iPhones, and it uses the same metal plates to cover up the connectors to the ribbon cables. To take out the screws, I'm going to use a Y000 screwdriver, and I have a really good set from Bonafide Hardware that I usually use, but I think my kids might have moved it, so I took a 20-minute break and found it, and now we're good to go. The screws in the second plate also use a Y000 bit, and they're really tiny, so make sure you're organizing them correctly. I had to move the screen to get to the last screw, and I was very careful not to damage the ribbon cable. With that screw out, I'm going to now remove the 2 plates, and I'm going to set the plates next to their screws. I also found the J-shaped plate has a little hook on the bottom, so be careful not to break it. With the plates out, I'm going to disconnect the battery so that there's no power going to the phone. I'm going to now remove the ribbon cables going to the screen, and I discovered there's 2 cables on the top with the second one hidden underneath the first. The top 2 cables are detached, so now I'm going to remove the third one in the middle. The 3 cables are disconnected, so now I can completely remove the screen. There's definitely a lot of damage on the front, but the back side looks good, so hopefully there's no damage to the Face ID camera or speaker. I'm going to set aside the main motherboard, and before I throw away the broken glass, I have to remove the speaker and camera. The speaker is this big square thing, and the Face ID camera is underneath it, and it's held in place by these 4 screws. For whatever reason, the 2 screws on the left are Y000 screws, and the 2 on the right are regular Phillips screws. I didn't notice they were different at first and almost stripped the Y screws, so make sure you look carefully before you start unscrewing things. When I went to lift up the earpiece, I noticed there was some tension. I didn't see any screws, so I'm guessing it's held down by some sort of glue. I applied a little bit of heat and the camera came off much easier. In addition to the camera, there's a proximity sensor, microphone, and the speaker cable, so that's why it looks like a jumbled mess. I'm going to carefully set it aside and get out the new screen. We're done with the broken screen, so now we can throw it away. I'm going to attempt to put the earpiece on the new screen, and before I put it on, I should have taken off all the plastic packaging, so make sure you do that now. After a couple tries, I found that if I folded it open, it was much easier to line everything up. There's little cavities for the camera, proximity sensor, and microphone, and once they're in place, I can fold the speaker over, and everything will line up flush with the screws. As I mentioned earlier, I forgot to take off the plastic packaging, so make sure you do that before you screw everything down. What a blunder. I'm going to tighten down the 4 screws, then double check that everything is sitting correctly. I'm looking for any cables that might be pinched or damaged or any components that might be out of place, but everything looks good, so I'm going to attach the new screen to the motherboard. The ribbon cable should connect pretty easily, so if you're getting a lot of resistance, stop what you're doing, take it off, realign it, then try pushing it down again. Also remember to connect the battery because you'll bring great shame to your ancestors if you do a repair and the phone won't turn on because it's not connected. The cables are connected, so I'm going to tighten down the protective covers. There's a little hook on the top cover that needs to be slid into place for it to sit correctly. Once it's aligned, I'm going to tighten all the screws. Again, the plates are all held down by Y000 screws. Before I seal up the phone, I'm going to make sure that the screen is working. As I fold it down, I'm going to be very careful not to pinch any cables. Then I'm going to power on the phone to make sure that the screen is working. I'm starting to get nervous because the phone took forever to power up, but eventually the screen powered on, so I'm going to turn it off and seal up the phone. I was able to slide the power off with no problem, so it verifies the touch sensor is working. As I clamp the phone shut, I'm going to make sure there's no cables or metal tabs in the way. It's sealed correctly, so now I'm going to put in the 2 screws. So one more time, I'm going to power it on and test the speaker, microphone, and camera to make sure that everything's working correctly. And my friend, everything's working, so we just fixed an iPhone 12 Pro Max. If this video helped you, please go out and help someone else. And have a great day.